Hello and welcome to Guru Grit. My name is Monika. If you're new here, I love astrology, spirituality, and all things that I endeavor to discover, which is hard to tell what that will be from day to day. But today's topic I really love, and I've really wanted to get into for a long time, conspiracy theorists, but in astrology. So how can you see a deep thinker, someone that's hard to convince, someone steeped in denial, or someone that's hard to fool, someone with hard, strong convictions in a birth chart? So I had so much fun working on this. I sprung out of bed this morning, energized on the full moon. The full moon is in Gemini, which is about learning and thinking, writing, speaking, expressing. So very good, mental sign. And I thought, how perfect would it be to take a break from some readings and get into this topic today? So I decided to seize the moment and go for it. So we have our little book of mysteries here I took a picture of when I was traveling. So let's get into conspiracy theories and astrology. So I've just compiled a list of people that I thought would be fascinating, and let's just take it from there. See what's up, if it will let me. It's been freezing a lot. Here we go. David Icke. Okay, David Icke is an excellent example. For those that don't know, David Icke is pretty much the, he's the OG. He's the original, I mean, he's not the only one, but he's been around for a very long time. He's been around for a long time. He was a soccer player who became injured and developed some kind of arthritis, and he went to a healer and bought a book he was drawn to. He saw this woman. He went to her. She did some Reiki on him, and he started to see things as he believed that they were. He had his kundalini open completely. And so he did a series of interviews. I believe they were in the 80s, and he was ridiculed very, very badly for the things that he was saying. And it's just really interesting because he's going strong to this day. He's been around for a long time. He's been deplatformed and shunned in many different ways, but he still perseveres. So how can we see these things in a chart? So let's begin with David Icke. So what am I really looking for? I'm looking for things like moon, for mind. I'm looking, and intelligence. I'm looking for Mercury, for research, for knowing, for intellect. Curiosity. Mercury likes to try new things. Okay, so if you have a strong Mercury, you're more likely to be a person who enjoys a bit of variety, or who's just not constrained by orthodoxy or orthodox timetables. You eat when you want to eat, you eat what you want to eat, things like that. I'm looking for 8th house for hidden things. I'm looking for the 12th house of secrecy and isolation. But I'm not going to rule out the 5th, because the 5th has a lot to do with our intelligence. So here, if we have, let's say, the North Node in the 5th, it can it can give something quite extreme. So someone who sees things very differently is very possible, who expresses themselves in a very big way. And of course, Jupiter. Jupiter is knowing in general. He rules knowledge, he rules divine knowledge, spiritual knowledge especially. So Jupiter in the 8th house, just hands down, is top tier for a conspiracy theorist, anybody into the occult, arts and sciences, anybody into astrology, anybody into any kind of energy healing. The 8th house, Jupiter in the 8th house is top tier. So that's excellent. Okay, so we've got that going for us. What I also find interesting about his chart is he's a very healthy moon in Cancer, probably how he was able to withstand such a crazy ride of a life. And it's great because it's an Ardra. Ardra, the nakshatra, is the howler. So somebody who maybe, from my experience, I've seen that there are people with a compulsion to speak or belt or sing, and they cannot be contained. You can call it ranting, rambling, oversharing sometimes, excessive sputtering of a stream of consciousness, but very good for communication. Okay, we have active 5th, of course, Mars in Scorpio, but mysterious, fine. But here's what I'm interested in as well. Saturn in the 1st, retrograde. Saturn rules the masses, and he's exalted in Libra. So this is someone who's going to capture the attention of a lot of people in their lifetime. And I'm very happy because I have a friend like this, so I'm just waiting for their moment, but it does take time to come into maturity. It's also retrograde, so clearly it's been an effort. And the ruler of the 1st goes into the 7th, which is Venus. Venus is a counselor, just like Jupiter. Venus consorts with demons. She's the planet of prophecy. So this is a very, very mystical chart. And in the seventh house of other people and society, you know, if you take yourself and posit it in the seventh, you're going to have an impact on lots of people. And, you know, to some extent, the reverse is also opposite. So I gave a chart in the relationship presentation with Sarah Silverman, who's a Sagittarius rising, has Gemini seventh, so Mercury in the seventh, debilitated. But what you do is you take the energy of others, and the seventh house is the house of, I believe it's more of a career house than the 10th. So it's trade, because you can't trade with yourself. You can negotiate with other people, negotiate your skills, your rates, your services, whatever. And you posit it in the seventh, you can be, you can be the thing that you pitch. You can be self-employed. You can be, what are they called? People who have empires, like Martha Stewart or something like that. Okay. Rachel Ray, whatever, you become that your name is your trade. So here it's like he is here for other people to serve us. So it's excellent. Okay. So really, really cool chart. All right. And Bharani, Sun and Bharani. Bharani is a very mystical, it's not credited enough for, what it does for mysticism. I think it's also not ruled, but associated with Venus. And interestingly, Bharani is the star of restraint. So it deals with, it deals with delayed gratification. It deals in the restraint of reward. It comes, but it takes time. So I'm going to show you when I do the charts of Theo Von and Lana Del Rey. They have that in the seventh. And so it's like, it just takes a bit of time and effort for all of their credit, which is owed to them, to be given to them in their craft and society and their love lives and their personal lives. So in this sense, if we have a retrograde Saturn in the first, that has to deal with other people, and here Sun and Bharani in the eighth of all of this incredible knowledge, then, it's like it's taken him basically many decades, to receive the recognition or to gain a larger audience or something to that effect. And of course, if we take the ruler of the eighth, which is Venus, and posit her in the seventh, we're taking the energy of all of that mysterious research. The eighth house is the house of research, and it's mystical in this sense because Venus, that's what she's going to denote, and we're bringing it into the seventh house. So he's taking and uncovering the depths of what he's found out and bringing it to the masses. And I mean masses because we have this aspect from Saturn, of course. So I mentioned first in the seventh. Excellent. Okay, yeah, perfect. I mentioned it all. So really, really good chart of someone who lives that life. Okay, they walk the walk, they talk the talk. So that's cool. Okay, Edward Snowden. So not strictly, I would say, a conspiracy theorist in the typical sense, but clearly someone who's uncovered something. A very cool chart. Really cool. Why? Well, of course, we have Gemini ascendant and 4 placements in Gemini. We have Sun, Mars, and of course Mercury in Gemini to communicate. And we have Jupiter in Sagittarius in his own sign, retrograde. So when I see that Jupiter is retrograde in someone's chart, they're going to lose before they gain something. So he put himself out there. He put himself on the line. He managed to escape. He's living abroad now from where he was. So he lost a lot in the uncovering of information. And remember that I'm going to do an entire presentation on Jupiter with the nodes. It's actually quite fascinating. So, it can give someone who's, again, unorthodox, an extreme thinker and a believer, a different set of morals, sometimes hyper moral, sometimes not moral at all. It's very fascinating, but it distorts this planet. So it's very interesting. I have Jupiter retrograde with one of the nodes. So I'm a believer in extremes. I'm a believer. As a child, I just thought, I literally used to think, why are we all going along with this? This is insane, but you grow up and you get a bit more tactful, so it makes life easier. But this person couldn't, okay? And it's interesting because it's in the seventh of other people. And so the interesting part is I want you to pay attention. Moon in the sixth in Scorpio. This is also quite common. Sign of mysteries. And the moon is you know, the mind, the feeling, very interesting. And so again, we have Venus in the third of, you know, communication, and then third sign, we have a bunch of planets. So if anybody was going to do what they did, it would be somebody with a chart like this. Okay, again, Saturn and exalting in Libra in the house, that fifth house also shows intelligence. Okay, and to let the masses know. And the interesting thing I really want you to pay attention is Mula. Mula Nakshatra is the whistleblower nakshatra. So the fact that it's in the seventh house with the planet of knowledge, I think is just super interesting. This is very cool. And I've also written here 12th Lord in the third. Okay, the 12th is secrets, something that's being kept from you. And so if you look in the charts of, you know, politicians or people in power, sometimes somebody's really famous and you think, oh, I'm really happy for you, but you're lukewarm, you're mediocre at best. How are you so famous? You know, you don't understand where they get these accolades and things. They know something, you know, they know how something works, or they understand something very nuanced. So the 12th is something that's basically not revealed. And so he's taken something secretive and used the third house of communication to put it on blast. Okay, so very cool little chart, but that Gemini energy is strong in this one. And I also think it's interesting that the sun is the planet with the highest degree, and the sun rules career. So it had some connotation with one's job. Right, I'm just trying to get through these as quickly as I can because I'll be here forever if I don't. Such is my nature. All right, Julian Assange, I don't know if you can see he has moon in the 12th house here. Moon in the 12th house. Oh, look at that. Another moon in Scorpio. Womp womp. What are the odds? So Julian Assange's chart. First house, Lord. Okay, Jupiter rules Sagittarius in the 12th. And super fascinating because Jupiter here is the planet with the highest degree. So someone who wants to know or knows about something that's being kept secret from others, okay, because it's in the 12th. It's quite mystical. It's also the house of isolation. So here you'll see people in hospitals, people who study, who learn, and so forth. And moon, okay, moon in Scorpio. I mean, it's fortunate that it's with Jupiter. It probably makes them a bit happy-minded, or just sort of, maybe they're a little bit more robust. Certainly can encourage bravery. That's quite good. Okay. Sun, again, Sun in Ardra. We have another Ardra placement for howling. So that's very good. And again here, okay, third house, Mars and North Node. So that's interesting for the communication and the expressing, okay, letting something out is very interesting. And again, we have Saturn in the house of other people, so able to influence masses. And other house to do with, you know, groups of people is the 11th, and here we have the Lord of the 11th in the 7th as well. Very interesting. Okay, really cool. I'm just trying to get through these quickly to show you. And then, okay, third Lord Saturn is in the 7th. So see, he wanted to put something out there in the world. So we've got a couple of moon and Scorpios. We've got Jupiter playing a prominent part here in 8th house, 12th house as well. David Wilcock, who I found out about via YouTube, you know, very well researched and all these things. Interestingly, case Saturn has a lot to do with the occult, and in the 8th house of the darkness, and Saturn is darkness. It's quite nice. It would help the person to endure, to research a lot. And, you know, third house of writing, speaking, third Lord in the 8th. So what is he talking about, learning about? Well, deep things, very deep, deep things. And the 7th Lord is, the first Lord is Mars, okay, and it's Scorpio. So Scorpio ascendants, never underestimate their ability to see into the deeper parts of life, and just brave. They're just generally brave and undeterred, I would say. And whenever I see First Lord in the third, I tell all my clients, you are an uncommonly brave person, because the third house is the house of courage. And I think he'll be around for a very long time to do what he does, to talk and educate, etc. Research for sure. 8th house is the house of research. Third house is the house of writing. So First Lord in the third, person can be a good writer, good speaker. And I wanted to mention Jupiter. Jupiter is in Uttarashada. Uttarashada is symbolized by the tusk of the elephant. And they're people who are known to have an emphasis on their truthfulness to the extent that it can get them in hot water from time to time, even in their own life or in social circles. So the interesting thing is the tusk of the elephant is it can pierce something, it can stab it. So the way that I see this is it pierces through the veil of illusion. And they're people who generally just understand how something works. So very, someone in my family and a very good friend of mine have this, and actually my friend has it in the eighth house, and my family member has it in the seventh of other people, and they're just really switched on. They're not, neither of them are conspiracy theorists. They could not care less. They just roll their eyes and think it's a waste of time. But if they see like a poster or something being promoted, they'll say, I remember she said one time, somebody very, very famous, she said, I mean, I really like them and I think their music's okay. Like, it's not amazing. It's not great. Like, it's all right. Like, but they're likable, but they're not the best musician. The hype is not worth it, but I like them. There's a difference. They can see a movie and be like, I don't know why everyone likes this. It's so corny. Like, I thought 50 Shades of Grey was a comedy. Like, I didn't, what? Like, they just get it. They're just tapped in. They can read people really well. They understand pretense very well. They don't like to exude it either. They're very real. They're not rude. They're not crass. They're not harsh or terse, but they're authentic. So they dislike that in their surroundings when they see it. They'll just be, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? If someone's trying to flirt with them, they'd probably be like, right, just save your air. It's a no for me. So they're hard to fool, very, very hard to fool. So here, if Jupiter's in Uttarashada, then where it's the planet of knowledge, probably someone who wants to go deep and find out more. It's never ever enough. So it's very interesting, and I very much like that. And I'm going to look to, I've got it here, Bharani. I knew I saw it somewhere. Moon in Bharani. Moon in the seventh house of other people. In Bharani, we were mentioning earlier, it's quite mystical. But Bharani also, I put shame and deep thinkers. Bharani does have a lot to do with deep thinking. Okay, people who can. They just, so I mentioned Lana Del Rey and Theo Von because they also have Bharani placements in the seventh house. I think they both have Venus and Bharani, but people who will attract, maybe criticism for things that other people perceive to be taboo or uncommon. So let's say for Lana Del Rey, she has this like, I love her first and foremost. I love her, not just because I like her chart. I just love her. I think she's a creative genius, but her chart and her work, not her chart, her work, she doesn't get the credit she deserves, or she's kind of bashed, but she's expressing herself in a way that's kind of uncommon or unusual. And she likes to pick themes that are a little bit more niche, and kind of popularize this, that, or the other. Maybe it's a little bit dark, a little bit edgy, and some people don't really get that, or they criticize it. So it can attract shame. It can make a person feel low, like they're not understood. And same thing with Theo Von, in the seventh house of other people, especially Venus being a woman and Moon there, then, something like issues in one's love life, or made to feel ashamed for like wanting love, so it can also delay those things like in life. But I'll get to that when I do their charts for success and creativity. But in this case as well, just a deep thinker, and then shame because you're in a field that maybe other people are not ready to hear, or they think you're crazy, and you're like, I don't care if I'm crazy. Just, they're going to keep doing what they do. So I think that's really interesting because the moon in the seventh can also give a person a lot of power, and it can give them a big audience because it's other people. And the moon is very social. It's very, very swift, it likes to be around others, likes to illuminate. So when it's there, it can take some time for someone to be taken seriously. Okay, and I mentioned Saturn in the eighth. Very nice. These are all really straightforward. Like, I haven't even touched on the sun and Mercury, Uttarabhadrapada for Mercury, very, very mystical, very spiritual nakshatra. And Mercury here is the highest degree. So someone who's going to be learned, someone who's going to be skilled. Excellent. Good job. Good job being born. And then we have one of my favorites, of course, Jordan Maxwell. Jordan Maxwell is a researcher. Hello. And I'm going to decorate this because he is born December 28th. So I'm filming this on I think it's the 19th. I never really know where I am. It's the 19th, so it's very soon. And he is born in 1940, so it's his 81st birthday on the 28th of December. So happy early birthday to Jordan Maxwell. He's devoted his entire life to researching. So you don't have to agree with him, you don't have to believe him, but this is his life's work, you know. And if anyone is interested, if you're in the Los Angeles area and you happen to see this, he is throwing a birthday party. So you can email. He just got a YouTube channel, and you can email his people that help him run everything, or just let him know if you want to come, or just wish him a happy birthday. And anytime I can, when I get donations, I always pass them onwards to someone in my own field, in astrology or in spiritual work. And anytime I can, I will donate him some money, because he doesn't make very much from his works. They're not in circulation so much anymore, very popular. So I hope he makes like a digital comeback. And I don't believe he's married or has children. So whoever can help him in any way, that would be nice. And he's just done a lot. Like, he's devoted. I think he came into this work as a teenager. Can you imagine? Over 60 years of research and speaking. And he had a radio show that was really suspiciously shut down when all the sponsors got kicked off. So he's just been through it. He's seen and heard everything. And if it wasn't for him, you know, there would be nothing to have entertained my teenage brain when I was learning. So I'm very, very thankful. And I think it's very nice that it's his birthday. Two very special people in my life are December babies. So I hold that very dear in my heart. Now, Jordan Maxwell's chart, excellent example. I don't have a birth time. So I've just made a lunar chart. Okay. I've just put the moon as the rising sign. So we're going to assume this is his rising sign for his Chandra Lagna. So we're going to read it from the first house, from the moon. Moon and Mercury are Mula Nakshatra, which is the whistleblower, which I find super cool. And Mula is known to destruct, to break things up, to destroy, and you make new again, you build again. So people who are system shakers, they've come forth to just like shake it up, put forth a new idea, put forth some fresh perspective or something like that, you know? In the process, they do tend to maybe hurt themselves, they can become obsessive, or they can isolate themselves, whichever. Substance abuse is also common with mullahs, but it rules the root. So I always imagine that it's people who get to the bottom of things, okay? And they're very steadfast in their convictions. If it's very badly placed, they can live in states of denial or be extremely argumentative, but they usually like hold on to their ideals, you know? So it can take many different forms. This is super cool. So again, Mercury from the moon in the 12th, quite mysteries. And then mystical, dreamy sign of faith and all these things, Sagittarius. Yeah, and in the 12th house of study. And 5th house, you know, from the way that we're reading it here, first ruler in the 5th with Jupiter, which has a lot to do with intelligence. We get the two giants. We get the occultist Saturn and the spiritual knowing Jupiter, and they're both retrograde. So that's quite interesting. And once again, bear in mind here, okay, I love how I say okay, like you're listening to me. I'm like, okay, listen, the 7th ruler and the 1st. Woohoo! So that's quite nice. You know, you make yourself. He does everything. He's a brand, you know, that's what he is. He speaks, he writes, he interviews, he does everything on his own. And from this moon placement, we have North Node in the 10th house in Libra, which is society. So the urge to alert others, to put the word out there, can be quite intense with someone like this. And for what it's worth, we do have a bit of Moon and Scorpio action. I'm sorry, Mars and Scorpio action. And I do enjoy that because the 4th house from the moon here is, you know, the 4th is the deep thinking mind, like states of meditation and deep thought, deep pensiveness, I would think. And the ruler goes into the most mystical sign. Okay, actually quite shocking too, because in 25 degrees, this is tropical, but in nakshatra, it would be Vishaka. This would be Vishaka, I believe pot of 4. So very intense. So it causes extreme changes in someone's lifetime. So the way that this came upon him was very odd, and his life has seen many highs and many lows and so many changes. So he's been up and down lots of times. Yeah, so happy early birthday. A very cool chart. And thank you for all your contributions. And also, 8th house, very mystical. And the ruler sits in the first. So it's literally him. It's like, it's who he is all this like bump in the night, Tim Burton creepy stuff. So very cool. Max Spiers, English conspiracy theorist. Max Spiers, born in the 1970s, passed away in 2016 under very interesting circumstances, quite mysterious. No one really knows how or why. He just he spoke a lot about many different things. You can look them up, but super fascinating individual. Most of his work was taken off of YouTube in the past year, but you can still find some of it online. But he had some really cool things to say, very interesting. And again, we have Mullah, okay, Mullah's son, and he was known for his work, but also speaking of, you know, getting in one's own way. He had coping mechanisms for the life that he lived and for the things that he believed that involved a bit of like partying, having a bit of excess, you know, a bit of fun that young men like to do and things like that. So it got to him from time to time. And again, really important to note, I was mentioning the nodes with Jupiter. We have South Node with retrograde Jupiter in the 5th house. Also, I don't have his birth time. He's also, I think he's born December 22nd, I think 1976, but I don't have a birth time. So again, we're reading it from the moon. All right, and it's just totally coincidental that him and Jordan Maxwell are both moon and Capricorns. But I would never underestimate. I think debilitated moons. One thing about them, because the moon is a social planet, is it can make the person I've seen in my life can make the person unwittingly harsh or something like that. And they're not rude or mean, or they don't mean to be, but they don't have a softness to them somehow, or like a social grace. Like they can be polite, but they can be very blunt or very forward. So I always associate that with a bit of like honesty or a bit of forthrightness. So in any case, here we have, you know, I was mentioning the 5th house of intelligence. It's also one of the houses you can see a very good astrologer from. So if you have Jupiter in the 5th house, props to you. That's fantastic. Okay, fantastic. And again, first lord in the 8th, the occultist Saturn, and we take the ruler posited in the 8th house. I feel this person really couldn't help it. Also, the 8th and the 1st house rulers exchange. Okay, Sun and Saturn exchange houses. So he really was someone who lived in maybe unseen realms, did a lot of astral projecting, was super, super into that. Uttar Ashada, there we go, the piercing of the veil. Again, sun in the sign of the whistleblower, and the piercing of the veil of illusion. We have Moon and Mercury, okay? The thinker, the writers, the speakers. The Moon and Mercury combinations are always really good. Orators or writers, top combination for writing. So super interesting. And then, as I was mentioning, the South Node here. Let's get into the North Node and Scorpio. So always something in its creepy signs. Like I think Capricorn doesn't get enough credit for how much it has to do with darkness. Okay, it does rule the color black, and it does very well. When I go through, like, if I ever do fashion, I did do a TikTok video where I talked about fashion, and I said I really like Saturn. I like Saturn, I don't know, but I like Saturn with moon and things like that. Moon and signs of Saturn, especially Capricorn. Saturn rules dead things. And, you know, like here, Mercury rules the skin. So when you get them in some kind of aspect, you'll get people who look good in leather, black leather especially. So super cool. All very conspiracy theory-y, very, very creepy, but really interesting. Now you see 10th house ruled by Venus and in the house of speech. So something, again, 7th lord and the 1st, I think I mentioned at the beginning. So very, very interesting. Okay, very cool chart how you can see these things. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any other questions. I know people were wondering, can you do something about like conspiracy theories? And I did make a video about conspiracy theories in the summertime, and I said I don't think that they are, you know, it's my opinion, I don't think that they're in alignment to be truly spiritually liberated if it circulates fear. You can learn about it and observe it if you're curious, but it should never affect your vibration, because you're much more powerful than some leaflet you read about or something like that. And people say, but it's true. I'm like, it doesn't have to be true for you. That is when you discover your own mastery. It does not have to affect you. So there's the key to, let me just decorate that as well, make it beautifully hideous. There's the key to unlocking your own potential, is not to be swayed by what anyone else says under any circumstance ever. No one tells you what to do. It always reminds me of that thing that makes me laugh. I can't remember. I don't know what show it was from, but I saw it was like a GIF. And some delivery person brings something to someone's door and they're like, here you go, have a nice day. And the guy goes, don't tell me what to do. I'm very stubborn like that. I'll just be like, don't tell me what to do. So go watch that. I'll link the video below. And the ones I'm going to do next are going to be people who are just generally mystical, but I'm not going to do super well-known spiritual leaders. I'm going to do something a little less so, but very influential, very influential in our time. So Dolores Cannon, and of course my boo-boo, okay, Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce, must do Edgar Cayce. I love that this book retailed, look, $2.25 Canadian. Those were the days. Edgar Cayce had an incredible 8th house stellium. Go figure, the house of hypnosis, and he self-hypnotized himself to do his work. Neville Goddard, of course, Neville Goddard was actually a practicing astrologer, but when he received the promise, he completely quit. He had students and he said he would help them, but he would never cast another chart again, and I don't think that he did. So I can't wait to get into their charts and do more of these things. So thank you so much for your wonderful requests, and I'll see you in the next one. The creativity series is still rolling on. I'm working on singers and lyricists right now. So until next time, I hope you're well and safe. Take care. I love you all. Bye bye.